and welcome to the Work for Change podcast. My name is Jean.
My name is John.
And you should hear how long it took me to say that.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful intro. I didn't mess it up, so it was great.
I have been working on this intro. I'm not going to lie. So the first one sounded like on our very first episode, it was like, hello and welcome.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, I don't like that.
So I'll be just sitting in the office and I just hear him in the background. Hello and welcome to the. Hello and welcome to the.
No, it's like I want to portray like excitement, but I don't. Then what happens if I get too excited? I peak.
Yeah.
And then it gets really
blow
loud.
the whole microphone.
So it's like, how can I be calm and collected, but like
also excited,
portray like excitement and like anticipation of what's going to come.
Yeah.
All that's going through my mind when I go, hello and welcome to the Work for Change podcast.
This is the best intro we've had, explaining our intro to people.
You know, we get real deep on this podcast. We get super meta.
We want you to know everything about the podcast. But with that being said, who do we got on the podcast today, my friend?
On the podcast today, we have a very, very fit individual. His name is Noah Ohlsen. This guy,
also a very good-looking individual.
Yeah, very good-looking individual, has made it to the CrossFit Games, the upper echelon of fitness in our space 5 times.
5 times.
5 times.
That's 5 times more than I've made it to the CrossFit Games.
That is 5. That's about 4 times more than I'm gonna.
Maybe as a spectator.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, for the longest time, I would say that the biggest competition outside of the CrossFit Games, in regards to the athletes at pools and the kind of respect it has, is Wadapalooza.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Ohlsen has won Wadapalooza 3 times.
3 times. Yeah.
And he has won the Worldwide Open, which means he has beat out like 300,000 people over a period of 5 weeks. So
insane.
Yeah. Very, very, very.
It's hard to even like fathom how much work that must take, and just like it's weird because, again, like for us, like this podcast is cool because it gives us a reason to talk to these people that we really wouldn't have another reason.
Yeah, they literally
so for us it's selfish. Like we just want to talk to them. But yeah, it was a really fun podcast. We were able to talk about a lot of different things, and for me, what stands out about Noah is just being able to overcome adversity, and we talk about that a good amount because he's definitely had to deal with some adversity.
Yeah, he's had to deal with adversity that he's put on himself, but also adversity that like has just happened.
Yeah.
You know, and he's literally had to deal with both of them. Mm-hmm. And it's really like, I think that you're going to really see the mindset of like, what does it take to overcome? Mm-hmm. Because dealing with adversity is something that every single person can relate to. It's not just something that's reserved for the most fit people, but if you're at work, or if you're trying to diet, or if you're just trying to live a healthy life, like adversity is going to come no matter what. And the principles that you can take even on the top apply on the bottom, or they apply wherever you are. And so I'm really excited to hear and get in the mindset of someone who's had to deal with it, and not just deal with it, but deal with it with everyone looking at him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point. And like you were saying, what I've learned myself from doing this podcast is that if you're really listening to someone when they're talking about things like this, like you can always apply their things they've been through to your life. Like it might not even, like obviously we're never going to be CrossFit Games athletes, but the things that we heard him talk about, I will be able to apply to my life and make myself better. And so that's what's so exciting. Like, yeah, all these podcasts aren't always going to be about crazy life transformation journeys, but there's still going to be lessons in just hearing somebody's story.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I think we were able to do today. And so it was just cool. Yeah, it's He's just honestly such a nice dude, and genuinely like somebody that I enjoy talking to. And so it was really fun being able to take up an hour of his time and make him talk to us.
Yeah. So really excited you guys to hear it. If you are listening to it on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment and leave a like. If you are listening to this on iTunes, on Spotify, and all these other platforms, rate it high, man. Mm-hmm. Give us 5 stars, you know, 5
don't
stars.
Don't be scared.
Yeah, don't be scared. 5 stars, go fars. You know, as I always say.
You shouldn't say that ever again. All right. And,
as I always say that. And in this podcast, we discover the real reason that I haven't made it to the games, and it's just all the injuries that I'm constantly dealing with.
Yeah, that's why.
Those are the reasons why I haven't been doing so well, and I'm really excited that I'm finally be able to reveal it to you guys, because it's been weighing on my heart.
Oh yeah,
ever since I've done all the opens.
Yeah, so if you guys really care about learning about Jean's injuries, make sure you listen to episode 9 of the Work for Change podcast.
Hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so what we like to do, just to make things super weird and awkward, just to start everything off.
We really like these interviews to start really bad because then they get better. And people are like, oh, I'm glad I stuck out for the whole interview because it was really bad at the start.
Exactly.
Yeah, it can only go up from where we're about to go.
That's our secret sauce.
Yeah.
So what we do is we like to Google the person we're interviewing's name and just see what the related searches are, because we figured that's what people are asking about. We kind of give you like a basic overview, or the listener a basic overview of who you are, and then we go on from there, whatever conversation that leads to.
So the first one that pops up is Noah Ohlsen armed robbery. Now, what is that about?
Are you okay. I thought you were being serious. I was like, wait. That's weird.
Yeah. You're like, I didn't tell anybody about that.
Yeah. Noah Ohlsen, suspect at large.
Gotta go.
No, okay, so the first one, actually, is Noah Ohlsen YouTube. So that's kind of cool,
Good
right?
to know. Yeah, that's kind of following in you guys' footsteps, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what, just to start off, you have a YouTube channel.
I do.
Okay, and you upload tips, training, day in the life, you kind of, is that pretty accurate with what you do?
Yeah, totally. I think all of that stuff is on there, and I'm still figuring out what that page is for, that platform is used for, and what people enjoy it the most for. It's relatively new to me. I mean, I've had a YouTube channel forever. Like when YouTube first came out and I first got a phone, I think I created a profile and I used to upload. There are videos, if you go way, way back, of like my PR snatch at 185 and all my old
like John.
Stuff.
Yeah,
attaboy.
I'd be so happy.
But that's what it kind of started off as. And then I actually met Craig Ritchie at Wadapalooza along with you last year. And he did a video. And on his video, he told people to comment on, I think, my Facebook page if they wanted to see me start to do some YouTube stuff. And not Facebook. Who uses Facebook anymore? My Instagram.
Old people.
And a bunch of people commented. And I was like, all right, if people want this, then let's give the people what they want. And it's been a fun little journey of just creating videos and figuring it out. I hired a media guy who's been helping me create stuff. Some of it's been day in the life stuff. Some of it's been straight up training. It seems to be that people enjoy that more than anything, is like just they just want to watch me work out more than they want to hear me talk or do anything else. So I guess I'll take it. I don't know.
I think that I've noticed that there's more and more like games athletes that have like switched over to actually like making YouTube videos. And I think that it's really cool. Like, do you think it's because, at least like you've been doing it for a little bit, but I've noticed like in the past like month, I've seen a lot of people being like, I'm opening a YouTube channel. I'm making a YouTube channel. Do you think part of that's because of the new, obviously with the huge thing that's going on with CrossFit, with them like basically getting rid of almost all of their media team? Do you think it's
restructuring.
Do you think it's people are thinking to themselves, okay, I want to start putting out my own stuff because I can't really like, I'm not saying that they were relying on CrossFit, but that's gone, right? And so if you want to get your name out there, which is something that also is interesting to me, is how much you have like embraced social media. Like you're especially with the guys, you're one of the biggest dudes in CrossFit on social media, and
in general.
Well, and your arms are huge too. Okay, but like I think that that's really cool. So do you think that has like anything that's related at all?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely possible. I think that I've always been curious as to why the top guys or games athletes in general, we've always had the opportunity to take advantage of our situation. If you're at the games, people want to know how you got there and what you do to stay there. And so social media, I think, is the easiest way to connect with people. And I've always wondered why majority of the guys and girls don't really take advantage of it. They don't invest and they don't create quality content. And some people definitely do. And you can see them they create opportunity for themselves. They have more sponsors. People seem to interact with them more. Like their name and their brand will probably last longer than those that just kind of ignore that. factor of being a professional athlete.
I think the brand aspect of it is what's huge. Like, if you can present yourself and people can relate with you, then it's like that goes so much further than your times or your, you know what I mean? Like, if people can connect and relate with you as a person, and that's through social media, that's through YouTube, through putting yourself out there, people, like, it's no longer I support Noah Ohlsen, the athlete. It's like, no, I like him. You know, like, he's my friend. I'm invested in that transaction or whatever you want to call it, that
That's
relationship.
Cool. It's actually become more that way, and I've been enjoying that side of things lately. I think I used to kind of put up a front and use social media to, like, portray an image of who I wanted to be or who I wanted people to see me as. And lately it's been more of, like, it really is just me and who I am and how I am, and being able to interact with people in a more genuine way has been more fulfilling.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because, like, with social media, there's almost like two camps of people. There's, like, people that are like, it's the worst thing ever and it's terrible and it's ruining society.
Yeah.
And there's other people that see the positive. I would say I'm like in the middle. But, like, for someone like you that is a professional athlete, that you train your butt off every single day, it gives you, like, that longevity when eventually you're not an athlete. You still have something that you've built up, right? And, like, that's the way I think of it. Like, the person that comes to my mind is Brooke Ince, right? She's obviously had to go through, like, she's been through surgery, so she's had a lot of setbacks. But even through that, and she hasn't been able to compete at the games because of, you know, those things, she's still been able. She's probably one of the biggest names in CrossFit. And she hasn't been to the games.
Nonetheless, her brand is still growing.
Exactly.
For sure.
And so I think that it's really cool that, because it seems like there's definitely more women in CrossFit that have embraced it than the guys. But I think that you're definitely one of the people at, like, the forefront of people being. I'm sure there's dudes in CrossFit that are like they aspire to, like, be you, right? As far as your social media presence, and then obviously as far as, like, the athlete you are as well. But and then on top of that, like you were saying, and this is, I'm kind of going off on tangents, but that's something.
That's what podcasts are all about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because you said about how you were putting on this front, like, portraying this person, and now you've kind of just been like, you know, I'm just going to be myself. I wanted to, something that I thought was interesting, because the first time I ever heard who you were, heard your name, was from, I think it was the documentary of the 2016 games, I want to say.
Okay.
It was one of the documentaries, and I remember after.
To be fair, we've only been in CrossFit for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So
Really? Okay.
So
that's about the same time it came out.
Yeah.
Was,
like, right when you guys started.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
And so I remember thinking, I remember the way that you were portrayed in the documentary was not a super favorable way. And but the thing that's crazy is I've met you in person and we've actually talked, and every time I leave a conversation with you, I'm like, that's a really cool guy, and I would love to hang out with him more.
Thank you, man.
You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm just curious, with the way that you were portrayed in, I think it was the 2016 one, because there's also stuff that happened in the 2017
Honestly,
one.
probably all of them.
Yeah. So exactly. Do you feel like that's how you were, and was there, like, something that you did to be like, you know what, I need to change some things, or was it just like, that's not who I am, and I felt like I was portrayed in a way that isn't who I really am?
Yeah, I think it might have been a little bit of both. To keep it succinct and short with that, it's interesting because CrossFit Media used to do a documentary, I guess, which is that's like the movie thing, the movie version of it, and then they also do the behind the scenes. And in the behind the scenes one, I've always, like, had fun, and the clips are very candid and unedited, and I think I usually get good feedback from that. And then in the documentary, the movie, I think there's just such a heavy influence on, like, the filmmakers themselves can really kind of tell whatever story they decide to tell, and I'm not saying that it's not the real story, that they're not telling the truth or anything, but just kind of, like, all the power is in their hands. And so the past few years, I've always been really excited to watch those documentaries, and almost every time I'm like, wah, wah.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't even
dang, my
imagine.
part sucks.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
I mean, that's
all good.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of having, like, a YouTube channel, is you get to say, like, you get to put that story in your hands. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And And even if that means being as real as possible, like people relate to real more than they relate to polished. You know, people connect with real more than they connect with someone who got everything right all the time, you know? And so I think it just gives that opportunity for people to kind of be like, yeah, I like this guy, and he messed up, and he didn't do this, and this didn't work out, or whatever. Like, and you get to say, like, on the YouTube channel, like, oh, yeah, that didn't work out like I wanted it to.
Right.
And then literally every single person goes, oh, yeah, I relate to that. I remember
I've been there.
when this workout didn't work out the way I wanted it to, or when I had to
For
quit,
sure.
you know.
For
Cool.
sure.
So that was the very first Google.
Okay, yeah, just getting started.
These are quick fire questions, man. You know, super quick.
Rapid.
Another one, second one, Noah Ohlsen website. Do you have a website?
I do. Yeah, that's also relatively new. I would say around the same time that I launched the YouTube channel, I launched my website, and both of those things have kind of been, I guess, not that I was hesitant to do either of them, but I was kind of in disbelief that it was necessary. And I had other people urge me like, no, I think it's a good idea. Like, you may as well go ahead and do that for this reason or this reason. And the website thing, there wasn't like one specific reason that we decided to create it, but I just made it as a platform for multiple things, whether it was just for people to be able to get to know me through a blog and now the vlog, or a media section with photos and text. And there's also my programming is available online. I know that's like a kind of a cliche thing. It almost feels like everybody comes up with a program now. My situation with that, I felt like I started working with a new coach in the training think tank staff.
Yeah.
And I had my best year of training ever, and I thought, hey, why hide that and let all those documents of the training that I did to get me to perform my best, let it just like sit in a folder on my computer? Why not share that with people and let them maybe experience something similar if that's possible? So I decided to put just what I was doing up online for other people, and then also just a shop. I kind of have fun designing merchandise and cool little T-shirts or hats or whatever. So I think those are the facets that encompass my website right now. And there may be more in the future, but that's all it is right now. Just a place for people to get to know me a little bit better.
So speaking of like branding, design, etc., I think right behind you, Happy But Hungry.
Yep.
That's a
strategic placement.
And ironically, the T-shirt. I flipped my phone over. Sorry. Yeah.
Yep, and the T-shirt.
I haven't worn this shirt in forever, and I just got back from the gym, and I ran to grab a shirt, and it was on the top of the shelf. I was like, this is kind of corny, but I'm gonna grab this one.
So, I think Happy But Hungry, you've done very good. Like, when I hear that, I think Noah Ohlsen. Like, that, for sure, that is, they are tied together. What is obviously I understand Happy But Hungry. Like, be content with where you are, but always strive for something else.
That's exactly my original thought behind it.
Yeah, so just talk a little bit about like how did you decide to like stick with that phrase? Like, what was that story like?
Cool. There's a little part of me, I feel like I shouldn't do this. I don't know if you guys edit it out or leave it in there. It's not really anything bad, but it's just funny that you said you associate that phrase with me. I think most people do. It's not like trademarked or anything, but I definitely kind of came up with it and used it on my branding. And the other day I got an email from a supplement company, and like the email was titled Happy But Hungry, and there was like a little phrase, like a little paragraph about like kind of what that meant to the person that wrote the thing. And I was like, dude, and like no credit given to me, not that I need the credit, but it was just funny. I was like, are you really like saying that's an original thought that it's possible? But I just
it's funny that it got emailed to you.
Right. Yeah, I also thought so. They should have blocked me from that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think I just kind of came up with that when I started working, like I said, with Training Think Tank. Max El-Haj was my personal coach, and we were kind of contrasting the attitude that Travis Mayer and I both had toward training. Travis is a very aggressive, like he kind of uses anger to fuel his workouts, and I'm kind of like lackadaisical, like always smiling, whistling, dancing around, and and we still both perform very well. And Max was seeing how ironic it is that I'm able to, I use that for myself and Travis uses that. And I said, yeah, I mean, I am, it just kind of happened this way. I am happy, but I'm still hungry. Like I'm still, I'm always ready to get after it, and I'm striving to do better and do more. And I literally said that sentence almost maybe word for word to Max, and that's when it clicked. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, happy but hungry. I could probably do something with that.
Nice.
And that was, that's how it panned out.
Yeah,
Nice.
I like it.
Yeah, I really like that too.
I like it a lot.
So one of the other
Appreciate
ones, one of the other things that pop up is Noah Ohlsen haircut.
Huh. Okay. I feel like it's actually been slacking lately. My barber always does a great job. I think it's my fault. I haven't been styling it as well. But I'm glad that people are out there still looking for it.
What's it like having the best hair in CrossFit?
I don't know. Like I said, I feel like I can't claim that title. I used to, a few years ago, I used to use like a hard gel and comb it real tight. And I don't know why that just, for me, I don't feel good about that anymore. So now I use like a matte gel and I kind of just like messy go fingers back. So I think aesthetically, like on a camera, maybe it doesn't look as like sleek and slick, and it seems like it's not as much of a topic of conversation as it maybe used to be, which I'm totally okay with.
I think the reason that it probably, because I used to do the same exact thing. I used to get a hard part like shaved into my head, right?
Yeah.
And then I would use Suavecito pomade, and like it would just like, no matter how much, and I think no matter how much I sweat, it stayed like that. So it was the same with you. So it was like he just did like this crazy workout, and his hair is still, it looks like he glued it on his head and it's not moving at all. So I think that's probably why, because like it's the same thing for me. I don't use that stuff anymore, and like so now when I work out, it gets messed up. But I do want to talk about about a year ago, you decided to like shave your head, and I remember that was.
Did you also?
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, I did. No, I didn't shave it, but I have in the past.
I know I've seen.
Yeah, I shaved it. Sometimes I just get bored, and I'm like, I want to cut my hair now, and then I shave it all off. But was it the same thing for you, or was there more kind of like a meaning behind you getting rid of the hair?
There was a little bit of that as well, where I was kind of like, all right, I need a little bit of change in that regard. And then part of it was weird. I was at the games. I think it was 2017. It was either 16 or 17. I think it was 17. And just on like the Saturday evening of the games, I think I had gotten back to the room, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I looked at Joanne and I was like, when we get back from the games, I think I'm just going to buzz my head. I don't know. I don't know if it was like signifying a new chapter at all. I think you can maybe add that drama around a simple gesture like a haircut, but it felt like I needed to kind of like shed my old skin and start fresh.
Yeah. I get that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I think, did you make a YouTube video, or did you put it on your stories? I remember when it happened.
Yeah,
I
had a friend of mine who like edited videos. He just came and took a cool video, got some like slow-mo shots of the cape going down and the hair falling.
Yeah. I remember seeing something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
All right, so taking it back now, we're gonna take a step back.
We're done with Google.
Yeah, we're done with Google.
Okay.
Sorry,
Googs.
So taking a step back, obviously you've been to the game, is it 5 times?
Yes, sir.
5 times, and there's obviously a journey that leads you there. So what got you into CrossFit, and like, were you somebody that, what we call a sportser here on the podcast? Were you someone that was always
a what?
A sportser.
A sportser.
So were you someone that like, played sports in junior high school, and then kind of that led you into CrossFit? Like, so like, where did your CrossFit journey begin?
What is the genesis of Noah Ohlsen?
The genesis.
For sure. I will try to keep that short and sweet as well, because I feel like all of these things you can talk about forever. But I kind of grew up playing a little bit of everything. I guess you could call me a sportser if you want.
I would call you a sportser.
But I was never the best sportser. I was always like moderate to good. Lacrosse was probably the one sport that I excelled at the most, and I played that for quite a while and really enjoyed it, and kind of wanted to pursue that as potentially like a college professional career for a little while. And I don't know. I don't know if I lost the passion for it, or there came a point where I had to make the decision: do I want to keep chasing that, or not. And I decided not to. And then I was kind of like lost in my athletic journey. It was right when I started high school, and I was like, all right, well, what sport? I know I want to do something athletic, you know. I hadn't yet gotten into like health and fitness, but I had always enjoyed sports. And I wrestled for a year, didn't really love that. Ironically, I didn't like the fact that it was like an individual one-on-one thing, like the fact that it's all eyes on you. I didn't enjoy, and now that's kind of what I do for a living. Yeah. But I wrestled, stopped that after a full year, and decided to swim and play water polo. Enjoyed that, had a lot of friends that did that. And that was kind of the sport that I played all the way through high school and the beginning of college until I found CrossFit. And didn't really even know that there was a competitive side, that there was a games to the CrossFit thing. When I first started, it was just like enjoying the change of pace. Like at that point, I had gotten into health and fitness, and to be honest, a lot of it was aesthetically driven. Like I wanted to get jacked and ripped and blah, blah, blah. Like we all did at some point. Mm-hmm. And then when I found CrossFit, I kind of slowly transitioned into the performance side of it. And I was like, okay, well, I need to learn the technique for this, and I can do this in order to move faster and get more reps. And I think letting go of caring more about how I looked and more about like what I was doing and how I was feeling from it. That was a cool journey for me.
Mm-hmm. And then, then how did you how did you end up getting, you know, obviously eventually, because when did you, like, the first year you made it to regionals, what year was that?
Cool. Yeah, I can do a quick summary of that stuff too. So started CrossFit 2010. The Open rolled around for the first time like 6 months after I had started CrossFit in 2011. Wow. Did the Open. At that point, I had decided, like, all right, I know now that there is a competitive realm to CrossFit. Wanted to try that out. I think I didn't qualify for regionals that year and was bummed out. And was like, all right, I'm going to go back to training really hard. I needed to work on my strength a lot. So I built up what felt like a lot of strength then. My numbers then relative to what they are now were still really, really low, but that they had gone up quite a bit. So in 2012, I was able to qualify from the Open for regionals. At regionals, it was a heavy regional in 2012. If anybody watched or competed there, they would remember there were, like, at the time, hang cleans at 225 pounds was pretty heavy. The 100-pound dumbbell got busted out for the first time. Heavy deadlifts. There was a snatch ladder. And so that my numbers weren't great. So took like middle to bottom of the pack at regionals. Came back 2013, much stronger, much better, almost qualified. Wow. Still had a big chink in my armor with heavy deadlifts. There was a 21.15.9 deadlift box jump at 315 that wrecked me. And so I didn't qualify again for would be the second time at regionals. And then 2014, I was ready, and I won my regional in 2014, 15, 16. There's been 1 year at regionals that Ben Smith snuck one past me, and I took second. But other than that, I've won all four of my 5 regionals and been to the games ever since 2014.
Wow,
that's pretty impressive. And you've also you won the Open 1 year, right?
I did. Yeah, that was random. That was cool.
You're like, wait, what?
Was that
I almost forgot about that.
Was that a one and done year, or did you like?
What do you kind of, but not really. So I didn't really start the Open with the intent of winning. I always just go. Most of us use the Open as it's a means to an end. You know, you just want to qualify for regionals, and I did really well in the first workout. I think Jacob Hepner and I actually tied for like 3rd in the world on the first workout. And it was either after week 1 or week 2 that I was like, I think let me like really invest some time and effort into this, and it'd be cool to win. I think I can pull it off. And so it was actually after week 2, because week 2, maybe 3 was it was like double unders, toe to bar, and a squat clean ladder. It started at 135, and it finished with it was 7 cleans at 315. which is it's still heavy. Like that's always
Yeah.
going to be a heavy clean, I think,
Yeah.
especially in the midst of a workout. And I did it the first time, and I like failed 2 of the cleans at 315. I had done 5 out of the 7 and failed 2 of them. So had I not failed those, would have finished, would have had a decent score. And I had to decide then. I remember sitting at breakfast and thinking, all right, I got like 2 more days to submit the score. And right now my score is good enough to qualify me for regionals, no doubt. So I don't have to redo the workout, but if I'm going to commit to winning it, like I definitely need to give this another shot. And I don't know what made me decide, but I was like, heck, let's do it. Gave it one more shot, crushed it. I did way better. I finished all 7 cleans with time to spare. It's actually one of my favorite videos that I have of a moment in CrossFit. I had set a GoPro up on the desk in the front of the gym, and all you can see in frame is me and my judge. And I hit the final clean and stand it up and slam the bar down. And dude, out of the woodwork come like 10 of my friends. They all cheer. They all circle around me, like push me around. We're all freaking out and cheering. So it was that was a really cool moment, and that kind of sealed the deal. I was like, all right, this is it. I'm going for the win in the Open this year, and I was able to take it all the way through and make it happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, it was fun.
So, I mean, so then you go to the games a couple times. If people want the honest story, they can watch the documentary.
Yeah.
But I did watch like your behind the scenes, and you and like Sivan are super chill. Like, and so
I love that guy.
Yeah,
we're good buddies.
It is interesting that the story is so different, you know, and it 100% is just editing, you know, like editing and what story gets told.
For sure.
So speaking of, I don't know, I'm going to talk about the Open.
Okay.
This Open. Do you want to talk about something first?
Well, I have this like came into my head randomly just because you've been doing CrossFit for so many years, and I'm just curious, like, has there ever been like an injury for you that scared you to a point where you were like, this might be a big deal, or like what's the worst thing that you've kind of dealt with?
Yeah, the reason I chuckle is because I've never, knock on wood, had any major injuries. Yeah, thank you.
I got you.
But every time I do have something, it feels major.
Yeah.
Like, not physically, but mentally. I'll like tweak my back on a deadlift, which every single time that's happened, it's a handful of times, it goes away in like 3 or 4 days. But every time something like that happens, I'm like, oh man, this is it. This is going to be like the one that takes me out. And so I've had a handful of little things like, let me see if I can go back and think of some stuff. I hurt my shoulder during actually Grid. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, the little team fitness thing.
Peace.
Yeah, I was doing some like castaway butterfly muscle ups, which I hadn't really done, and like bottomed out on the rings and yanked my shoulder really hard. And so for a while that was really tender and restricted, and I couldn't really do much overhead. And again, like, I don't know what factors out there helped me out, but that has gone away. Any little back tweaks that I've had have gone away. I've had periods of time where like my knee hurts or my hip feels a little tight, but honestly, for the most part, relative to what I've heard from most other guys, I think I've been lucky to stay very healthy. It seems like, talking to some of the top guys, even though it's not vocalized much, like you're not going to see it on social media or anything, but very often a lot of top games athletes are pretty banged up. Like there's usually something going on with everybody at some point.
Yeah, and that's like what the reason I asked that was because I know for me, I'm not even someone that does this for like a living, but when I like tweak something that, again, it's the same kind of thing, right? It's like 3 days long, but when it first happens, in my head, I'm like, well, this is it for me. Like everything's over, and like this isn't even my job, and that's technically that's your job, right? And so I can only imagine that even if it's not something that's that big of a deal, in the moment and the day afterwards, like I feel like what would be going on in my head would not be good, you know? So it's,
well, I mean, not only that, but it's just frustrating because you've gotten yourself to the point where you are really healthy and physically capable of some pretty awesome things, So when you get tweaked up and you're restricted from doing those things, it's frustrating because you're like, oh, I know I can lift that or move that way and I want to, but right now it just hurts too bad. And like, you just kind of have to be patient because you know you're going to be all right and be able to do it soon.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of like you said, most people are probably kind of banged up, but most of the time those things probably don't make it to like social media unless it's like, I have to get surgery for this and I'm going to be out. You know
Super
what I mean? Like,
serious,
you know,
right?
And like so I think I watched a video of like from a while ago with like Rich Froning was talking about it. He's like, I always have like, he calls them like niggles and little things that are going on. It's just like, there's always pain. It's just how it is. Like with the training that you guys do, it's going to be there. It's just you have to decide, is this something that will go away with rest, or like after I warm up, do I feel okay? Or is this, you know what I mean? So I'm sure there's like tons of that goes on.
You know, it's interesting. There is kind of the flip side of it where I don't know. It's never been fully confirmed, but I've had my speculations. There are times when somebody doesn't perform the way they wanted to at a competition, and then they kind of use an injury as a scapegoat and maybe play it up a little more than maybe, I don't know. Not to say that anybody has ever not truly been feeling pain in any way, but sometimes when people are like, you'll see the reflection post a week later and they're like, listen, this is the reason why I didn't perform because blah, blah, blah was hurting me. And you're like, is it really that, or did you just not?
I can 100% see that happen.
Yeah, you know, that's the reason why I don't do so well. I actually
got it.
Right now I'm going to go out and say that I have a bad knee.
What do you got?
And my shoulder, my nose has kind of been hurting me lately.
Dude, that's the worst.
I'm pretty sure I have swine flu right now, actually.
if you guys can be patient, in about 2 years, my girlfriend Joanne will have graduated PT school and she'll be able to diagnose you and help you out. So hang on.
Yeah, I can just guarantee you now, I have all the things she's learning.
Got it.
I have all of them.
So that's why I get last place in all the workouts.
That's the reason. Okay, so we were talking about mindset, and dealing with frustration and dealing with when you have injury, like keeping in your mind. So I do have a couple questions regarding your mindset and specifically around specific situations. So not necessarily the situation itself, but your mindset through it. The first one, watching the documentary, 2017, and that whole assault banger mess, right?
Yeah.
And then also 2018 with your pedal on the bike falling off. So there has to come a level of resilience, right? You can't wallow. You can't be mad and frustrated and then hate the world for it.
Well, you can, but then you're not doing any good for yourself in the moment, you know? So
you've had to be resilient, more than a lot of athletes, it feels like.
So, yeah.
You know? And so what's your mindset there? You're good at being resilient. Is that something you've had to work on? You know, just kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know if I would be able to say that it's more or less than anybody else, but I for sure have had a handful of moments that stand out to me. I think because I always have high hopes for myself. I want to get on the podium every year, and there have always been these key moments, it feels like, where something is trying to dissuade me from believing that that's possible. And the sandbag thing in 2016, I think that was, or 15. And then, like you said, the pedal falling off this year.
For people who didn't watch that, that was when you had to pile a whole bunch of sandbags in a wheelbarrow and then it tipped over.
Yeah, for sure. It was just an unfortunate thing. It was totally my fault, but it only happened to myself and I think one other guy, where basically you had to load everything up, which took quite a bit of time, and walk this wheelbarrow across the stadium. And as I started going, my thing tipped, and it just basically, I was like, all right, well, there went my shot at doing well on that workout, because it was one of the things that, if that happened, you just lost probably 4 minutes of time having to take them out, flip the thing over, load them back up. And actually in that moment that year, because I did have such high hope and I had performed so well that morning, I think I had taken third on the swim event. I got in the car with my girlfriend and I broke down. I just started crying. I was like, is it over? Is there any point in me continuing to compete? I feel like I'm not, like, I can't win anymore, right? If I took 34th place on day one of the games, like, how, I don't know. And I just kind of had to vent and get all that out. And she's always been great at helping me process through stuff like that. And I just realized, and I think it carries over into all of the other situations, that the only choice is to kind of put it behind you and move on. Like, I'm never going to quit. You know, who's going to pull out of the games because they had one poor performance? That was definitely not an option. So I was like, all right, well, if that's not an option, then I've got to move on and I want to perform better. So I can't hold on to this. You just got to get back out there and do the best you can on everything else.
And hearing you say that is interesting to me, because it's easy to say that when there's not much at stake. So if you're just somebody that's going and, like, in your head, you're just like, I'm just happy to be at the CrossFit Games and I just want to compete.
Yeah.
I don't care if I get last place, right? I'm just happy to be here. For you, like you said, you had high expectations for good reason, because you did so well in regionals. You know what I mean? Like, you have those high expectations. So to hear that from somebody that really does have something to lose, as far as, like, in your mind, you want to be, you know, you're there to get on the podium. You're not there to compete, right? And there's people that are there to compete, which is, I mean, I'll never get to that point. So, you know, more on them. Like, I think that's awesome. But
yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, hearing that from somebody that, like, you're there because you know the hard work you put in, you know what you're capable of, and you know that if things went a certain way, right, you would be on that podium. And so, like, hearing you say that is, I think for some people, when you don't have much to lose, it's like, yeah, of course, yeah, always have a smile on your face, and, like, if things go wrong, you just got to smile through it. Like, that's great and all, but, like, when you're actually like, no, that moment, like you said, you can pinpoint, like, that moment is what costed me, you know, all of those places. And so I think that that says a lot to, again, your mindset, like John was talking about. And then, like, kind of going towards, because that was, like, that's something that the sandbags, you put them on there and they fell over, and you can kind of say that was your fault, right? Like, darn, I did something wrong. But the pedal, which, if people don't know, that was the very first event from the 18, the CrossFit Games, you know, and they had, what was it called? It was the
Criterium.
Criterium, right? Crit, yeah. And so you're basically just going in circles, you know, like, around and your pedal ends up falling off, like, not your fault at all. And then you ended up having to get off your bike, right, and getting another bike or another pedal or something like that. And so that costed you minutes off of your time, which costed you a bunch of spots. So I'm just curious, as was there a difference in your mind from, so that was 2016 when the wheelbarrow thing, right?
15 or 16,
15 or 16. So if you kind of fast forward to 2018, obviously you've gotten older, you've competed a bunch more, you have more experience. Do you feel like you were able to rebound from that a little bit better? Because I'm assuming your expectations were probably even higher, because I remember being, like, super stoked, and I heard about that because I was actually at the games, and I was like, what? Like, that sucks. And I was bummed out for you, right? And so what was going through your mind then, you know, when that happened? Yeah,
that was almost, I don't want to say more or less frustrating. I was less emotional then than at the games prior, but it was just so I think in 2015 when the wheelbarrow tipped over, I was emotional and I was disappointed and bummed out. When this thing happened this year, it was kind of that, but on top of it, also a little bit of frustration, because I felt like, man, I don't know, is there any way in which I can be compensated for that? I understand that sport is sport and things are going to happen and you just have to deal with it, but maybe there's a way that I can kind of figure out something with the time, or I don't know. I was like, if I had not had that situation, I likely would have done a lot better. Can we figure out how much better I would have done? And it ended up not.
It's a fair thought. It's a fair thought.
Yeah.
Like, when I think back to the situation with Cara Webb with the thrusters, right? When she ended up accidentally not doing enough thrusters because the judge said go.
Right.
And she
go.
went, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
they were able to be like, okay, we're going to take 4 seconds off your time or whatever, and you're going to be in this
Yeah.
place. So, like, I get
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, can we find some way to do something like that? It ended up not being a – and so that's interesting that you mentioned because I talked about letting things go. And while I wanted to let that go, there was still a little bit of deliberation on what they were going to be able to do for me. And it took until, I think, Saturday afternoon.
Oh,
and
wow.
this thing happened – what was it? It might have been Friday morning, but all the rest of Friday and through the first couple of events on Saturday, I was kind of waiting to hear back. And when I did find out that, hey, sorry, there actually is nothing we're going to be able to do for you, I was kind of bummed out. And I had to go through the process again of like, all right, now I definitely have to let it go and try to move on. And it is what it is.
Interesting, man. Yeah.
Quick side note.
Yeah.
My phone just said 10% battery left. I just want to warn you guys in case it cuts off. I can go to the computer after. I don't know if that'll ruin the whole thing or if you can edit it together, but
no worries.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just giving you a heads up.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
I'm down to chat for however much longer. Hey, we got Max in the house. Come here, Bubba.
Sweet.
Max just got a bath.
Oh, he's a good puppy.
My God.
That's a good boy.
So good.
Oh, he's a
it's
happy
okay. It's
boy.
okay. He's super excited.
Yeah.
Good
He's
boy.
like, do they want to talk to me? Like,
Yeah,
do
I
they
know.
have any questions for me?
Yeah, he did. I saw a little side glance to the camera.
Yeah. Well, no,
He hates getting a bath, but he's always super excited after he gets one.
Because he's done.
Good boy. Good boy.
Can we talk to Max instead? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Max, come here.
No. Yeah.
You want to say some words?
I would be freaked out if he started talking. It would be
Yeah,
awesome.
I told you he was really smart. I don't know.
He is.
So I guess kind of switching gears, we've talked about what's happened in the past, and obviously this year there's been insane changes to the format of the games. We've talked about it a couple of times here on the podcast. So, obviously there's tons of different ways that you can qualify for the games. The first thing is done, right? Dubai. It was ended up being Matt Frazier and Sam Briggs. So they're now at the game. So what are your plans as far as like
as a guy who's won the Open before, as a guy who's won Wadapalooza multiple times, that's the next one coming up. Like, what? I know. There's so much. Like, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, exactly. But like, what are you thinking? 2018 or 2019 for a lot of people is let's just see.
Right.
Like, what's your
perfect world? What would Noah do?
And how?
Yeah, I mean, while I do kind of think that we have to wait and see like what the season looks like, I want to do it from inside. I don't want to do it from the outside, So I am planning on trying to qualify through both of the things that you just said. I don't want to give myself too many options because that, in my mind, means I don't believe that I can do it in the first two. So definitely Wadapalooza. Hopefully that goes well, and then I'm kind of good to go. For whatever reason, if it doesn't, I think the Open is another place which I have done well in the past, and so I believe I can do well again and probably earn a spot there. Have not considered any other options beyond that. If I have to, then I will.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the plan for now. And then I think you're right that all of us, when the games are over this year, are going to look back and be like, all right, this is what the CrossFit Games season looks like now.
Do you feel – we talked about it before. This is your, like, job, right? So do you feel any of that stress with the uncertainty moving forward?
I did at first, to be honest, when they started announcing the changes. It was all very weird through social media and like articles coming out and certain people saying things. I was like, well, I don't know what to believe, and I'm hearing this and that. And there was one night, I think, when they like first announced that there was no regionals and there might be sanctioned events, but it was just like all up in the air. And I went to bed that night one night and I felt sick to my stomach, and I was like, man, it's always been the same. You do the Open, you do regionals, you do the games. And now it's totally different. And I don't even know if there is still a games in the cards for me, And with, like you said, with it being my career, I kind of was like, well, if not, then what? And I started letting my mind go there, and eventually was able to calm down, and I talked to my coach. We kind of devised a plan when we started to learn more about the structure of this season. And hopefully it goes well, and hopefully all the changes do more in a positive way for the professionalism of the CrossFit athlete. And if they don't, then I have come up with some fun, creative ideas that would be kind of excited to dive into. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm excited for, like, at first, obviously, when I heard about it, this is just somebody that's was never gonna make it to regionals. You know, my chances were dashed. But as somebody that's just a spectator, I remember just being confused. But I didn't understand. Like, so many people were like upset, like genuinely mad, and I remember thinking like, well, we don't. You can be mad if after 2019 ends and it was terrible, then I get that, right? But we don't know what it's going to look like. And from what I saw with Dubai, I mean, it seemed to be – the event seemed to go pretty smoothly, you know. The Matt Fraser won, which was, like, of course. But, like, with Sam Briggs, like, winning, I thought that was cool, you know. And it seemed to, like, to kind of work. And so that was, like, our first kind of glimpse at what it could end up being. But I just remember thinking that people were kind of freaking out initially more than they kind of should have, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I kind of didn't understand people's incredible frustration and anger. And I don't know. Some people definitely panicked. I was trying not to go there. I did not hit the panic button.
Yeah. I understand being upset about, like you were saying, with the lack of information and how it kind of came out. It was just in so many different places, and you were like, who do I trust? What do I trust?
What's really happening? Yeah.
So that I was kind of annoyed with, just because I was just like, well, what is actually happening? Like, is this actually real? That I understand, but like being upset about these sanctioned events, I don't know. Like, we just hadn't seen anything yet. So
100%. I thought that Greg was like lying to the morning chalk up just to like get them to put out this like totally false story, and then like next thing you know, like regionals happens and they're like well, you know, I don't know.
I honestly would not be surprised.
Yeah.
It was really interesting, actually. I went out to CrossFit HQ for the team series with Travis, and while we were there at CrossFit headquarters, everybody there was like, we have no idea what's going on.
Oh, wow. Oh.
They literally said that just all of the information, the decisions are coming from Greg, and we're finding out as you guys are finding out that, like, oh, that's announced. You saw it on the morning chalk up. Yeah, so did we. Like, nobody informed us on the back end.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I was at HQ too, and we like filmed like commercials and stuff like that, and you can tell that there was like a disconnect between CrossFit Games media and Greg, right? Like, Greg's the person that created CrossFit, but there was like definitely like a disconnect. So when I started seeing that stuff, I honestly did believe it, because I was like, I could see him just going rogue and completely being like, no, this is what I'm doing, and I have made my decision, and everyone else
deal
was
with
like,
it.
yeah. And so that was that. Yeah, it was interesting, like, kind of being there as well, and just seeing like, oh, Greg, like, he really just cares about CrossFit for the regular person, for health and stuff like that, which is great. It's just there's so many people that enjoy it as a sport, and I think that with like the documentaries, that's the first thing that I saw that got me into CrossFit. Like, my brother showed me, right?
For sure.
And so I just like, for CrossFit, as far as like staying around, CrossFit's always going to be here, right, as a training methodology, I think, at least. But as far as like getting the most amount of people doing it, because I genuinely think it is the best thing to do if you want to get healthy and fit, and like you can be functional, right? And so for getting more people to do that, that's what I think the documentaries were so strong in. You know, not like,
it's a great medium for marketing.
Yeah, not like making people famous or whatever. It was like, no, it was good to get people like me that maybe were into fitness a little bit to see like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing athletes, and I aspire to be that. And so, I think it's interesting, kind of just, I'm curious as to see if that's if they're going to just stop making the documentaries, or like what that's going to look like too, you know?
For sure.
So you recently put on your YouTube channel, which I watch. I like it. I'm subscribed.
Thank you.
Just so you know. Like,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm subscribed. Your video where you're like, special announcement, and you talked about like wanting to train with someone full time, have them out there in Miami, and you were talking about someone who's aspiring to go to the games with you.
So we're putting our names in.
Yeah. What about someone? What about someone
You're
who
in.
has no
Come on
chance? No chance at making it to the game.
Yeah.
Is that
No,
fine?
honestly, that was a consideration. I don't know if that's the finale of your question, but when I decided, like, hey, I want to put something out there that is like, I need somebody down here to help me going from the environment at Training Think Tank, training with Travis and some of those guys every day where it's really competitive, really intense. Coming back to Peak 360, which is the gym that I started at and I love so much, it's amazing and the energy is great and the vibe is good and everybody's so friendly and it's like my family. But it's just missing that competitive edge for me now that I've gotten used to up at Training Think Tank. And when I decided to try to recruit somebody down, people said that. They're like, well, where do you draw the line? Is it like only games athletes are invited or regionals athletes also? Like, what if that message goes out and 50 people are like, yeah, I want to move down. Like, this is my goal and that sounds awesome. Then what are you going to do? And I don't know, that kind of scared me. And I was like, maybe you're right. And so I had intended on posting that clip that was at the end of the YouTube video on my Instagram as well. But I held back. And honestly, I just got really lucky. It didn't have anything to do with the video. By chance, a young man by the name of Leighton Burillo Sonino moved down from New York to Miami because he just graduated from NYU. He's a regional athlete, great kid, great athlete. We got connected like a month ago, and we've been training together weekly, daily almost. And I feel like he's my guy now. Like he's here. He's actually gonna get a place pretty close to Peak probably in the new year, and I'm gonna be able to learn a lot from him and get pushed in certain areas, and I think vice versa. And so I think that's gonna be a great, like almost exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome. And then also a kid named Ivan. I can't remember his last name right now, but he's from Argentina. Just came in to kind of like prep for Wadapalooza. He's going to be here from now all the way through the end of January. And he's also a stud. He was like #1 contender out of the Open in Latin America last year. So I don't know. The pieces just kind of fell together and we've got a good competitive and fun environment going at Peak now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. First of all, like I'm so stoked. I was hoping there'd be a good like ending out of that invite, you know, like I was hoping for sure.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want John to be the one you're training with.
Come on.
But what as a high level competitor, for you, like what is important in a training partner? You know what I mean? Like, what do you look for? Because some aspect is like it could be good because you're always pushing yourself, but then if you're more focused on the other person than yourself, like that can become dangerous, you know? So
yeah.
What do you find the most important in like a training partner for you?
For sure. I don't think maybe there is an exact ideal, and I don't know if I've ever experienced it. I know getting to train with Travis Mayer a lot all of last year, that was great. He is much better than me at a lot of things. And so we were constantly trading blows, like back and forth all the time. He would beat me on something, I would beat him on something. And I think that was good for both of us. And I think Max did a really good job of balancing it. We were not doing the same exact workout every single day, every single session. Because like you said, if we were doing that, I think that would be just like ramming your head into the wall. We'd both be exhausted. We'd both be frustrated. And so it was a few times a week we'd do like a for real head-to-head thing. A few other times it was like EMOM stuff together where it's not competitive, but you're still like motivated to do it because the person next to you is doing it. And so I don't know. I mean, I think honestly just somebody that is, I was going to say happy but hungry. But just at least the back half of that phrase, like somebody that's hungry, somebody that's willing to get after it, that's aspiring to do well, that is not going to make excuses, that's kind of down for whatever, you know, like if we're going to go mountain bike and swim in the ocean when it's super rough and choppy, like I have friends that are willing to go do that with me, and that's really cool. Like your ride or dies, you know?
Yeah. Totally. Awesome, man. Well, we definitely don't want the recording to be lost because the phone dies. So we'll go ahead.
See, I've got 1%.
Oh, okay. So we'll wrap it up right here.
Yeah.
If there's like one thing that you want to say to anybody out there watching, maybe somebody that's aspiring to be a games athlete, what would it be? And then we'll end it there because we don't want your phone to die.
Yeah, no worries. I'm sorry about the.
It's all good,
phone
man.
Cutting it short. Yeah, I don't know that there's any one particular secret. I think there are definitely always like those one-liners that kind of people can that people can go back to. There was one that was in the back room of Peak when I first started. It said nothing replaces hard work, and that kind of has always stuck with me. Like if you want something, you actually have to work hard for it. It's not always going to come easy. And I think that the happy but hungry thing too, like try to really enjoy the process and appreciate the things that you've got going right now, because that makes it a lot easier to get through the tough stuff. But always stay hungry. Never be content. Stay happy but hungry.
Awesome, man.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I want to do my own podcast where I get to ask you guys a bunch of questions.
Dude, that would be
awesome.
awesome.
You guys are awesome
sweet.
dudes and have a lot of cool stuff to tell. So
we'll do a YouTube collab.
Yeah.
I would love to do that for real.
That would be
if you
cool,
guys,
man.
well, I know you're coming down for Wadapalooza, so maybe we can figure something out for that.
Heck
Sweet,
yeah, man. All right, see you, dude.
All right,
Awesome,
gentlemen.
dude. Really appreciate
My
you coming
pleasure.
on, man.
Thanks.
Sweet, man. Well, that was awesome. That was really fun talking to Noah. Sucks that his phone was going to die. The reason that we ended it and didn't just like keep going was we were just honestly worried about like if his phone dies, will we lose the whole recording? So we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose that. So
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. We would just have to call him again and have the whole conversation all
for
over.
us, we wouldn't mind.
oh,
but for him, he'd
darn.
probably like, I just talked about all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really fun being able to talk to somebody that, again, like we look up to and learn about like little things that maybe they've never even talked about. And so for me, I'm always super appreciative because we're just two dudes that like CrossFit. And the fact that people have decided, you know what, I will spend an hour of my time and talk to these guys that, it's not like the podcast is some huge, crazy, huge podcast that's going to like boost their name up a ton, but they at least see value in maybe just talking to us. And for me, it makes me very happy. And I'm glad I'm able to bring it to you guys. So
yeah. And I'm kind of seeing like a theme. Where these games athletes think I'm better than I actually am, and it's like they think I've been doing CrossFit longer, that I'm better than I am. Jacob Hebner was like putting out some numbers. He was calling them small, but they were like PRs for me.
More than PRs for you.
Yeah, and then Noah Ohlsen just did the same thing. But it's just cool to like the numbers and all that may be different, but it's principles that you apply to your life, and that is how you're going to see change.
Yeah. And again, just super cool guy. I'm glad we were able to get Max on the podcast. Sad he wasn't able to speak any words to us, but he was a little busy, I think. So
he's getting a hair wash.
Hair wash.
He's getting his hair did.
He was gonna get some French braids. All right, awesome. Well, I think that's it. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I love you.
Cool. All right. See you guys later.
Peace.